Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience, and this is my first impressions of the Hifiman Susvara. And these were loaned to me by Hifiman, and they currently sell for $6,000. And yes, you heard me right, $6,000. This is the most expensive piece of equipment that I've reviewed so far since I've been doing this. I've reviewed, I think, 4 maybe headphones in the $3,000 to $4,000 range, but nothing over $4,000, and some amps up in the like $2,500 range. But $6,000 for a headphone, definitely the highest I've gone into the high end, and I guess this is truly high end. So anyway, this is a full-size wired open back planar magnetic design, and this does use stealth magnets. In fact, I think the Susvara was the first Hifiman headphone to use stealth magnets, and just the real short version. Planar magnetic headphones have magnets that run across the diaphragms, usually inside and out, and if you look at an ordinary magnet from the end, it would be square or rectangle, and stealth magnets, looking at it from the end, are a half circle, which gives rounded edges for the sound waves to pass by. And the theory is that it causes less distortion and a more pure, undisturbed sound that doesn't have to go over sharp edges before it gets to your ears. So anyway, this uses the window shade type grill similar to the 1000 series and the Aria series, and now they're all the way down into the Anandas and even the Edition XS. This headphone has an impedance of 60 ohms, which is very high for a planar magnetic headphone, and a sensitivity of only 83 decibels at 1 milliwatt, which is very low for any headphone. So if you haven't figured it out already or haven't heard, this headphone is extremely power hungry and one of the hardest headphones to drive from not only Hifiman but any company. This is known as being a headphone that needs a serious amp, so don't get one of these and try plugging it into your phone or even your portable. I don't know of any portables that will provide sufficient power. Hifiman claims a weight of 450 grams. I actually weighed it on my kitchen scale. It came in a little heavier at 464 grams, but still what I would consider pretty much average weight for a full-size over-the-ear headphone like this. It uses detachable cables. They have a 3.5 millimeter connection at the amp end, or at the, I'm sorry, I messed up again, at the headphone end. I'm messing up everywhere. I'll try to get my act together here. Anyway, it comes with 2 cables, and these are a lot nicer than the previous Hifiman cables. Instead of a rubber coating, it has a cloth coating, and it makes it a lot more flexible and just easier to manage and just a better feel. So it does come with 2 cables. One has a 6.3 millimeter connection at the amp end. The other has a full-size 4-pin XLR. And if you noticed, I haven't even unrolled these yet because since I've had this, I've been using a real nice cable that came from Marco's Custom Cables. So anyway, not that I think it makes a significant difference in the sound, but it's just a really nice cable that feels really nice and looks nice and just high quality. But not that there's anything wrong with these cables, but Hifiman doesn't have the best reputation of providing real nice cables. They kind of go with a minimum required for the headphone. Anyway, something I did want to show you here that is quite unusual, and this headphone comes with an owner's manual that's actually a hardcover book, and I've never seen that before with any other headphone or any piece of equipment, an actual hardcover book. And it's full of pictures and all kinds of things, and it's probably about I don't know, 40, 50 pages long, but kind of a nice extra to throw in with it. But yeah, once again, this is a $6,000 headphone. And it does come with a pretty nice case, similar to the HE1000 SE, but you can see the inside. It's got kind of a, I don't know what this is. It's not really velvet, it's kind of a nylon material, but anyway, it'll keep the headphone safe during shipping, and it gives you a nice dust-proof place to keep it when you're not using it. So anyway, let me roll in a little closer and I'll show you the headphone. And it is a nice looking headphone in my opinion, but you know, the build quality seems to be really good. It's the build materials that seems like Hi-Fi Man kind of skimps. And I mean, compared to some other headphones with full, you know, machined wood cups and that sort of thing, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the quality of this at all. I mean, it's got a nice aluminum grill, aluminum trim around the ear cups here, aluminum yokes, stainless steel headband, aluminum slides here. But then you get into the actual ear cups. I don't know if you can see it here. They're actually plastic. You've got the aluminum on the front, but they're actually plastic with a, I think it's a real wood veneer on there, but that's just a thin strip of wood that covers the plastic. And then if you pull the ear pads off, you can see that the ear cup itself is plastic. And then the ear cup, or the ear pads, are slightly tapered a little bit. They're a synthetic leather, I believe, like all other Hi-Fi Man headphones, and have a cloth interior. And they're not super thick, but they're adequate. My ear doesn't touch the inside, and they're large enough that I've got room for my ears. And one thing I do like about this is it doesn't have the egg-shaped ear cups like most of the higher end Hi-Fi Man headphones, which do cause me a little bit of issue with pain in my jaw after I wear them for a while. So these are actually more comfortable to me than like the 1000 series or the Arias or even the Anandas. They're, I think, slightly heavier, but like I said, it's not a comfort issue. It's got a head strap here that's very similar to what's on the 1000 SE, but I think the one on the SE actually feels a little thicker. I thought maybe that was suede, but this one, it feels more like a felt material. I mean, it's comfortable and all that, and it's wide enough, but like I said, you know, just plastics and imitation leather, that sort of thing. Not really what you expect on a $6,000 headphone, but Hi-Fi Man seems to be more concerned with sound, and as far as sound goes, they got what they, you know, what they were shooting for. I mean, you know, there is no doubt about it. This is a great sounding headphone. Is it for everybody? I would say no. The answer is definitely no. This is not a headphone for everybody, and obviously the $6,000 price tag is going to eliminate 90% of the headphone users out there, at least 95%, and then of the, say, 5% that can afford it, it's not the right headphone for a lot of them either, and I'll talk about that a while later. But don't get me wrong, this is an incredible headphone. It does so many things better than any other headphone I've heard, and I'll dive into that a little bit in a few minutes. And remember, this is just my first impressions. This is not a full review. So I've had this for a couple weeks now and spent a lot of time listening to it, tried it with a lot of different amps and DACs, and I can tell you right now, this is very, extremely sensitive to the DAC, both the DAC and the amp. Your source, it goes everything. The recording, your source, the DAC, the amp, everything is extremely important with this headphone, more so than any other headphone I've reviewed so far. So I did want to talk about the equipment I've used in reviewing this so far. And so far, as far as DACs are concerned, and I'll start with the lowest price first and go up to the highest price, and then I'll give you my list of amps, and I'll talk about, give a little brief description on each one and on how I thought it worked out. So anyway, as far as DACs, I tried the Topping E50, which is a little $200 DAC from Topping that is extremely clean and measures extremely well. I mean, it's right up there in the top, probably 1 or 2% as far as measurements, and it's only $200. It's a DAC that I highly recommended in my year-end reviews. Also, the Topping D70S MQA version, which is my personal favorite DAC under $1,000. The Hifiman Himalaya DAC, which is built into the EF400 amp DAC. The Audio GD R8 MK2, which is a huge R2R resistor ladder DAC that I've had for a while, kind of my reference. And then also a DAC that I've had in for review for the last few months that I absolutely love and ended up being my primary DAC reviewing this, and that's the iFi Audio IDSD Signature, which is a $3,250 DAC with a built-in amp, and I just love it. It's unbelievably clean and detailed, and that's primarily what I used reviewing this. Okay, then as far as amps, I tried the Topping L50 stacked with the Topping E50 DAC, and it actually worked out surprisingly well. That's only a $369 combination. Both the amp and DAC are extremely clean, and I think it puts out about 2.1 watts per channel into 32 ohms. And it's actually sitting here on my desk behind me. You can see it here. And they do surprisingly well. It doesn't push this headphone to its limits. It just doesn't have enough power. And that's what this headphone is all about, is power. It needs power behind it. It'll go plenty loud. In fact, this amp has 3 gain settings. I tried it even on low gain, and I got almost nothing. It won't even go up to a decent listening level. But on medium gain, it'll actually go up loud enough, but it has almost no bass. It just sounds really flat and no dynamics. If I go up to high gain, it does pretty well, and I'm usually listening to it with the volume knob at about 11 to 12 o'clock, depending on the level of the recording. And as long as you don't try to go too loud at normal listening levels, this little $369 combination is extremely clean and will bring out the detail and resolution this headphone's capable of. It's just if you try to go louder, up into loud to very loud, then it starts losing a little bit of the dynamics and just doesn't have the punch and the bass weight of a larger amp with more power. But anyway, if you buy this headphone and it leaves you broke, that is a good option for $369 for that stack. I also tried the Emotiva A100 Bass X, which is no longer available, but they still make a similar amp. And what that is, it's a 50 watt per channel speaker amp that by installing a couple jumpers inside of it, you can transfer the whole 50 watts per channel into 8 ohms into the headphone jack with no resistors in the way, nothing. The jumpers actually bypass the resistors, and it puts out a full 12.5 watts per channel into 32 ohms. Okay, it's not the most refined, it's not the absolute cleanest amp. It sold for like $229 when I bought it like 6 years ago. But anyway, it will provide the power that this headphone needs and makes it extremely punchy and dynamic and gives the bass some weight. It doesn't have quite the resolution of some of the other amps, but it's another alternative if you're on a tight budget and want to provide this headphone with enough clean power to give it the weight to the bass and the dynamics it's capable of. I also tried the Hifiman EF400, which is I think on sale for $399 right now. It's 4 watts per channel, and it actually works pretty good with this headphone. It's not the ultimate in resolution. I think the Topping stack actually has a little bit cleaner sound, but it's got good power and it'll push this headphone well. And for $399, once again, if you're on a budget, a good choice. But don't get me wrong, this headphone, more so than any other headphone I've ever reviewed, scales with the quality of the equipment. The higher up the ladder you go with a DAC, the cleaner and more detailed the sound is going to be. And when you get a go higher up the ladder of amps, you're going to get a cleaner, more dynamic sound with more weight to the bass. And I'll be honest with you, there's some controversy with this headphone. Does it have enough bass or not? And I have two thoughts on that. Number one is the amp, and most people realize that. They know that this headphone needs some power behind it. A smaller amp, a 1 watt per channel amp, will make it play loud enough, but it will sound very flat and lack dynamics and weight to the bass. You need some headroom there to be able to power the peaks and, you know, the thump and the weight of the bass needs that power behind it. So that's the first thing. You need an amp with power to create bass. Then I noticed something else. After listening to this a while, I realized that with some music, it sounds like it has plenty of bass. It's got all the bass I would want. With other music, it seems to sound a little thin and a little lacking in bass. And what I finally figured out is I had the same problem about 6 or 7 years ago when I got the Hifiman HE560. I was moving up from the HE500 and I thought the 560 would be a step up. Well, in a way it was, but I noticed that with some music it sounded like it had more bass than the HE500. And with other music, it actually sounded like it had less. And what I finally realized about that headphone is it had better bass extension than the HE500. So songs with good sub bass actually sounded better on the 560. But it had less punch to the mid bass than the 500. So songs with a lot of mid bass that lacked sub bass, which includes a lot of classic rock, sounded kind of thin on it. Well, this headphone is similar to that. This headphone extends really low into the sub bass, and because of that, if a song has a lot of sub bass, it feels like it has plenty of weight to the bass and no shortage. But if the song lacks sub bass and only has mid bass, it can sound a little thin because this headphone doesn't emphasize the mid bass and doesn't come across as having a whole lot of weight to the mid bass. The mid bass is pretty much neutral. But I kind of wandered here and got off my subject. I was still talking about amps. I also, the DAC, I was talking about the iFi ISD signature that has a built-in amp. And I use this with this, and it's kind of the same as the topping, but better. It's an extremely clean amp and DAC, gave this an exceptional detail, but once again, if you try to get too loud, it just lacks in power and doesn't give it that dynamics and punch that it could have. Okay, I also tried the Burst Conductor 3 reference, which is about an 8 watt per channel amp. Does a very good job with this. I'm not saying it's the absolute best choice. In fact, I probably don't have the equipment to take this as far as it can go, but the Burst Conductor 3 reference works very well with this, and that does have its own built-in DAC. Also, the Audio GD Master 9, which I used in stack with the Audio GD R8 MK2 DAC, and gives it a really good sound. Maybe not the absolute last word in detail, maybe not the absolute last word in punch, but it takes you at least 90% of the way there, and it actually works real well. That's like 9 watts per channel and I think 40 ohms or something like that, so it's got plenty of power there. It does work out really well, but I've heard there is better amp solutions for this, but like I said, I just got this in and you know, I'm experimenting with it. Also tried this with the Hifiman Prelude, which you can see in the photo here. that I haven't done a review on that yet, so my first impressions of that will be coming out soon. That's a newer $2,500 amp from Hifiman that's rated at 10 watts per channel into 32 ohms, and it has the power this headphone needs, and it has a resolution, and that's been my primary amp. So most of my listening with this headphone has been with the iFi IDS Signature DAC, running into the Hifiman Prelude amp, and it's been outstanding. It gives it, that combination gives it the detail, and it also gives it the bass weight and the slam, and brings out the best of this headphone. I'm not saying there's not possibly better amp DAC combinations out there, but this combination has worked really well for me. Also, I tried this with a few tube amps, and the only one it worked out well with was the Waveborn Power Amp Plus, which is a transformer coupled amp that is conservatively rated at 3 watts per channel. I think it's probably more, and it has incredible clarity and detail, and actually has enough power to do a very respectable job of driving this headphone. Probably one of the best sounding combinations I tried, and I was also using the iFi DAC when I did that. So getting into the sound, and once again, this is just my first impressions. I would say this headphone is very close to neutral, with just a slightly warm of neutral mid-range, and just a slight V-shape, a little bit of bump in the bass. The extension on both ends is very good. It goes very low into the sub bass. It goes as high as I can hear into the treble, with no roll-off, no noticeable roll-off at either end. The bass goes very deep. It's not emphasized. This is not a headphone for bass heads. If you're a bass head, there's better choices out there. Like I said, basically neutral with just a slight emphasis in the bass. Very good sub bass, though, goes very low. The mid bass, I would say, is almost neutral and very amp dependent. The bass on this, if you don't have enough power available, the bass is going to be kind of flat, lacking in dynamics, and not have a lot of weight. The more power your amp has, and a lot of people have connected this headphone directly to the speaker outputs of amps up to 100, even 150 watt per channel amps, and hook this directly to the speaker output with no resistors, nothing, and had very good results. In fact, most that have tried that have said it's better than any headphone amp. Excuse me just a second. The mids on this headphone, I would say just a little bit on the warm side of neutral, and they have a nice liquid, smooth sound, never sound dry, never sound analytical, and voices, vocals, both male and female, I'm hearing more texture and more detail in voices than I ever had from any other headphone. It just brings out it's just the tiniest little nuances and textures. I noticed it a lot in female voices, and it's beyond any headphone I've heard up to this point. The treble, just crystal clear, but never sounds harsh. Some people might think it's a little bit on the bright side. I personally like headphones that are slightly on the bright side, and that's why I'm a big fan of Hifiman treble, where a lot of people, or at least some people, think Hifiman treble is too bright. I would say it's kind of in line with the 1000 series, the Aria series, you know, kind of on the same level of brightness, but just as you go up the ladder, it just gets cleaner and cleaner and more detailed, and that's where this is, the top of the ladder. Clarity and detail are just absolutely outstanding. Without a doubt, the best I've ever heard from any headphone. And up until now, The best headphone I've heard as far as clarity and detail has been the Hifiman HE1000 SE, and this is even better. It takes it another step forward, another step further. It's just, you know, just almost mind-boggling, the detail. And I know everyone says this and it's kind of worn out, but it's one of those things where you listen to music, songs you've heard 1,000 times, 10,000 times, and you're noticing little details that might have been there, but you never really noticed them before with another headphone. And it's, you know, it's almost like listening to music for the first time. You're hearing stuff that you didn't notice was there. After you notice these details with this, you can go back to something like the HE1000 SE, and you realize they're there, but they're just not as obvious, and you might not have noticed some of them the way this headphone just brings out everything. The soundstage, it's very wide and it's very deep. It's as wide as the 1000 series headphones, but with even better depth, and the SE had the best depth of the HE1000 headphones, and this goes even deeper, and it's as wide. I don't think this has quite as much height to the soundstage as some of the, you know, I had the 1000 Stealth and the 1000 SE. I think that H-shaped ear cup actually gives the soundstage a little bit more height, where I was hearing things a little bit further up here and a little bit lower down here, but this just has an incredible soundstage. It's a combination of width and depth. The imaging and separation are both absolutely outstanding. Pinpoint imaging and just incredible separation between instruments where nothing overlaps, nothing even touches each other. Each instrument just has its own location. And once again, the best I had heard up to this point was the HE1000 SE, and this is even a little bit better. And okay, comfort. To me, this is actually more comfortable than the other Hifiman headphones that use the H-shaped ear cup. This doesn't ride as low on my jaw and doesn't give me that pressure that causes me to have a little bit of aching. If you've watched my previous videos, the H-shaped ear cups, after a while aggravate. I've got TMJ mostly on the right side here, and after about an hour I usually have to take them off for 5 minutes or so and just give it a rest, and then I can go back to listening to them. Where this headphone, I don't have that issue at all, so I actually prefer the round ear cups as far as comfort. Forgiveness, forget it. This headphone is very unforgiving, and you will end up searching through your music collection and looking for your best recordings, because 90% of the music you own you will consider unworthy of this headphone, and you will end up just listening to the absolute best recordings, because if there are any flaws to a recording, this headphone will reveal it, and that's just a fact. And I've heard of people with high-end systems, whether headphones or speakers, that end up at a point where they're only listening to 10 or 20 albums or CDs or whatever, because they're just using their best recordings. And that's one of the issues I do have with this headphone. It will cause you to do that. I mean, you can listen to everything, but you're going to hear so much difference between an average recording and a really good recording that you're probably not going to want to listen to the average recording much anymore, and you're going to be searching out your best recordings again. And what I've noticed with this headphone, the stuff that sounds the best to me is this headphone does an exceptional job with pianos. Piano music just sounds more real than anything I've heard before. Okay, I mentioned vocals. There's just more texture and detail in vocals. Also, acoustic string instruments, just incredible detail, and just, I mean, you know, guitars, you can hear just little places where someone just barely slides a pick on the string that you never noticed before, but you notice on this. But they just sound so real and so detailed. And some of the music that I noticed to sound really good on this, Norah Jones was one. All except for that one crappy recording she made, Little Broken Hearts. I don't know what happened there, but the rest of her CDs all sound great, and this just does so well with Norah Jones. And Sarah McLachlan sounds really good. Jewel sounds good. Natalie Merchant sounds good. You know, and anything, the Sundays use that. I have an album, what's the name of it? I can't think of it right now, but anyway, it's just all acoustic guitars. It just sounds so good. I listened to some Dire Straits on this. They use acoustic, combination of acoustic and electric, and they just sound so clean. I listened to some Steely Dan on this, and just incredible. The drums, the snares, just everything so clear. But anyway, I keep forgetting this is the first impression. I'm pretty much giving a full review here. But anyway, there's no doubt this is an outstanding headphone. Just no doubt at all. This headphone does so many things better than any headphone I've heard. And it's not a huge amount better. Okay, comparing this, just a real brief comparison of this to the HE1000 SE. The HE1000 SE is an exceptional headphone, and this just takes it a little bit further, except for one spot. The HE1000 SE does have a little bit more weight to the mid bass, and obviously it's way easier to drive. You don't need near the amp, and you don't have to spend near as much money on equipment. But other than that, this headphone is like the HE1000 SE, but just a little bit better in almost every way, except for that sub bass. Like I said, the HE1000 SE has a little bit, or not the sub bass, the mid bass has a little bit more weight to the mid bass, and in fact the HE1000 Stealth has more yet. So if you're leaning towards being a bass head, you're probably going to be happier with the 1000 SE, or maybe even the 1000 Stealth. And if you're even more of a bass head, you might be happier with the Aria Organic that I just did my first impression, because that's got a lot more weight to the bass. But, you know, it's trade-offs, but it depends what you want. This headphone, I think, was designed for someone that wants a basically neutral headphone, that wants to hear absolutely everything on the recording exactly the way it was recorded, without any emphasis or without anything being lost. So that's the only flaws with this headphone, I find, is number one, the cost. It is expensive, especially considering the HE1000 SE has been dropped from $3,500 to $1,999. So this is now 3 times the price of the HE1000 SE. Is it 3 times as good? I would have to say no, but maybe with the right equipment, maybe with the right DAC, maybe with the right amp, it might be 3 times as good, but you're going to have to spend some serious money to get into that kind of territory. So another problem I have, an issue with this, and another reason it's not for everyone, is because this headphone needs some power behind it to get some weight and punch to the bass. Putting that extra power is going to give you some extra volume levels too. And what I found out with this headphone is I'm tending to listen to it louder than I usually listen to headphones. And that's not always a good thing, you know. I mean, you can eventually do damage to your hearing listening too loud. And this headphone kind of forces me to listen at a louder volume, because I'm trying to dump enough power into it to get that punch and weight to the bass, where something like the Aria Organic, you can listen to it at half the volume and still have that bass there. So That, and then the fact that you're going to have to spend some money on your equipment. You could get by. Like I said, the $369 topping combination here does a really decent job unless you want to listen to it real loud. The EF400 does a decent job, but it doesn't quite etch out every last detail. I listened to it through that ISD signature and just heard incredible detail, incredible separation of instruments, incredible depth, incredible layering, and found out that it can go further. But like I said, that's a $3,250 DAC, and it does very well with the built-in amp. But once again, you can't, that's if you listen to it at normal volume levels and you're not trying to push it, trying to get that dynamic punch to the bass. But like I said, to get the best out of this, I had to go with a $3,200 DAC and a $2,500 amp, and I'm sure you can go a whole lot further with this headphone, because probably more than any other headphone, it's going to scale and get better with better equipment. So $6,000 is going to be out of the range of most people as far as a headphone, but it doesn't end there. This headphone, you're going to have to keep spending money on it. You're going to spend money, you're going to keep wanting a better DAC, you're going to want a better amp, you're going to want to push this headphone to what it's capable of, and then you're going to start searching, buying a bunch of new music, trying to find the ultimate recordings to hear what this headphone's capable of. And you've probably all heard that saying, do you use your equipment to listen to your music, or do you use music to listen to your equipment? And this headphone and the associated equipment that goes along with it can push you past that edge where you start using music to listen to your equipment, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So to be honest, and this is kind of my bottom line on this, there's no doubt this is an incredible headphone, but I would say it's for like the 1%. The 1% trying to push it as far as it can go, and this headphone is you've heard the saying, point of diminishing returns. Well, that's this headphone. This should be in the picture. It's taking you a step beyond like the 1000 SE, but it's going to cost you a lot of money to do that. And to be honest, I would say a lot of people are going to be 100% satisfied with the 1000 series, whether it's the version 1, 2, Stealth, SE, or even the Arias, and you're going to save a whole lot of money on the headphone. And I mean, the Aria Organic now goes for what, $13.99? That's less than 1/4 the price of this. That headphone is going to take 99% of you to as far as you want to go, and you'll never know that you're missing anything with a headphone like that unless you listen to this side by side. And yeah, it does take you a little further, maybe 10% further, but you got to spend a lot of money for that 10%. Once again, point of diminishing returns. So yes, incredible headphone, but not for everyone. And that's my bottom line. Once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience. If this video helped you, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do so. And the Headphone Experience on Facebook is up to 29.5 thousand members. You're all welcome to join us. Once again, thanks for watching my video.